currently in the spooky season, and I absolutely love this time of year, pretty much from now through the rest of the year. And so I've been doing a lot of builds that are kind of for the season and everything, and I'm trying to get a lot out this month. And for this one, I decided to build a house that's shaped like a pumpkin. So let's go ahead and get into the speed build for today. So first off, welcome back for another speed build. If you're new to my channel, we like to build here, and I always try to do things you won't see anywhere else. And so for this build, I searched the gallery for a lot of pumpkin homes, and I shockingly didn't see too many. One that I saw was actually like, it was really cute, but it was just a pumpkin object sized up all the way, so it like covered over the walls of the house, and that's a really clever thing to do. But I wanted to like literally build a pumpkin, and I think one of the reasons, as you can see right here, is as to why no one has done it is because round walls are extremely difficult to work with. And if you haven't worked with them, I don't even know if I want to encourage you to try, because there are a lot of weird things that happen when you start doing things in The Sims with round walls, rounded platforms, things like that. And so I thought I'd leave the full like process in this video. I went back and forth a little bit because it is so long. And just to get started with the shell and the roofing. So the shell and the roofing literally took over an hour in real time. And I decided to leave the vast majority of that process in the speed build. So this part is really fast, a little bit faster than the rest of the speed build. But I just wanted you to see like how complicated this process was for me. I'm definitely by no means like the greatest builder in The Sims, so that's probably partially why it took me forever to do it. But a couple of things that made it really hard was that you couldn't delete some walls. So this wall that you see in the center right here that goes all the way from one side to the other, I couldn't delete a lot of that wall. And that's just because I guess with how some of the rounded walls meet in that midpoint area. And so you can't get rid of that wall. And so there were a couple of walls that I just had to leave in the build because I was just kind of tired of trying to figure it out on my own. And I was like, I have the shape that I want in the house, and that was honestly the hardest part of the whole build. So I was pretty pleased at that point. I was like, I will leave whatever wall I have to in order to have the shape of the house that I want. But also what's really tricky whenever you're using rounded walls is that when you try to like pull to expand them or like shrink them, it does some really wonky things on the edges of that corner part, and so that made it a lot harder too to try to get around what I was trying to do here. But you can see right here how that middle wall is going through the whole house, like literally splitting it in half. I could not get rid of that wall. So that is in the final build. I put like an archway where it kind of goes and juts over, and so that I couldn't get rid of. So we're finally getting to the roof part. So this part was really fun. So you just have to use your imagination a little bit with this, and that I was going for like a very whimsical kind of pumpkin vibe. And whenever you see a pumpkin, you know, it has the ridges that go across over the top. So I was like really exaggerating it with the roof pieces here and trying to figure out how I can make it look like a pumpkin with the roofing, because otherwise, I'm just gonna have a really weird looking roof to try to cover up all of these rounded corners and edges, and I didn't want to have to deal with that. So that was one thing that I just would not budge on, and I thought that I just had to make something fun and whimsical out of it. So you'll probably hear me use that word a lot with whimsical, but that really was the vibe I was going for. What I'm trying to do with this cone piece was I was thinking of like the little stem part off the top. And I was like, yeah, it is kind of rounded and whatnot, but I wanted it to kind of have more of a point to it. And it kind of made me think of almost like a witch hat in a way. And so I just thought that the shape itself being a cone kind of lended to the overall vibe that I was going for in the house. I really wanted to go for that vibe overall with like the spooky season, the pumpkin, and that's what I'm working on in this process. Took forever to figure out how I wanted it to go. I tried a lot of different things. I actually tried sizing up pipes so you can get that like nice cylindrical shape at the top and putting it over the roof piece to try to connect it. That wasn't really looking right. And then also you have to rely a lot on debug for that, and you couldn't change the color swatches, and I couldn't find a color swatch that worked really well. Now I do end up going more for a green on the roofing here, at least at the start. I honestly can't remember if I ended up eventually changing it, but I understand that normally when you get a pumpkin, they're brown, but with the whole house being orange and putting a brown on top, it just didn't look good. And I think if we had like a really, really light brown color in the roof that I chose to use, then that could have worked. But keep in mind that this was not only a pumpkin home, it was actually a Japanese inspired pumpkin home. And that might sound a little bit random, but I've had some Japanese inspired homes on my list of builds to do in The Sims, and I've not gotten around to them. So I was like, why don't I just take this idea I already have of doing a pumpkin and let's just use a lot of snowy escape in it. So that was the vibe for this overall, was just using everything snowy escape that I could to make it more Japanese inspired and give more of that Japanese vibe overall. So I'm finally getting to putting the colors on, the freezes, all of that good stuff, so we can finally hopefully get into the inside a little bit. But overall, I think one thing I struggled with at the start was laying out the entire home. So I have all of these weird rounded pieces, literally the whole outside of the house. So in one way it helped because I was like, okay, I kind of know how I need to divide the house, and then I skipped over right here because I forgot to click record while I was working on the kitchen, so that's why that happened. What I'm working on right now is I was trying to do a pumpkin shaped island, so this was a really fun vibe for me, and I did so many iterations of this. I had to cut out so much footage. I'm kind of embarrassed to say how long it took me to do this. I don't know exactly what that number is, but it took me forever. So right now it's pretty large, and I did play test it with a sim to make sure, and you just saw me do it right there, to make sure she could get into the kitchen around the island. It did work, but I do eventually go back and kind of change that and make it a smaller pumpkin. What I'm doing right now is trying to figure out the aesthetic on the inside. So I'm like doing the walls, the flooring, the cabinet colors and everything. One thing I didn't think through very well at the start was how Snowy Escape doesn't really have a lot of orange colored items, and so I was like wanting to bring the orange of the pumpkin into the house, but I didn't want the whole house to be pumpkin everything everywhere. And so luckily Snowy Escape has this really nice orange toned wood, which is what you can see in the kitchen right here. So it actually looks orange, and it's not like super vibrant orange like the island is. So I used a different countertop. It's like the metal countertop though. It has a lot of different colors, especially from the color swatch update, thankfully. But they have a really nice like super pumpkin orange color. And so I was bringing that in more for the island as an accent. So that's why I use a lot of black on the inside as well. But there was a lot of finagling with the countertops, both in the kitchen and the bathrooms throughout this whole house, and literally everything that's up against that curved wall for the most part. But I think this actually ended up working out really well with the layout in the kitchen. So you can see I like switched where the stove was multiple times, trying to figure out the best layout. And I thought it made the most sense. I was trying to put the sink in the center part of the rounded area because I was like, I want a window right there. It makes sense to put the sink there, but I just didn't like the way that the flow of the kitchen was going because I had the fridge on one side, the sink in the center all the way down. I'm using my hands a lot. And then I had, you know, the stove over on the right with the hood, and it just didn't look right to me. So I was like, let's make the hood like an accent piece in a way and make it the central point of the kitchen. So I liked having that big hood go all the way down in the center of the kitchen. So this is that wall that I was telling you I couldn't delete. So I was turning it into the start or entry point of a hallway. So I go through so many iterations of like sliding doors for the hallway for that part of the build. And then right now I'm making a bathroom off of that part off the living space. Actually, this ends up being something completely different, which I won't ruin it yet, but that doesn't end up being a bathroom at all. So you can see throughout this process so far in the video that when I build, I very much have like ADD where I'll scroll through, find items that it's like, oh, I want to use that later, but I don't know where. And I'll pull it out and just like put them somewhere. And you'll see that throughout the video where I'll just start pulling random items and put them in rooms. And it's like I go with an idea instinctually right off the bat. Whenever I see something, I'm like, I want to use that. I will make a whole room around that object if I can use it. And that's why in my channel in general, you've seen where I've used certain objects to, you know, inspire full builds. So I did a whole cottage build because of a swing set that I used in another build, and there was a color swatch that I really liked, and so I did a whole cottage off of that color scheme of the swing set. So I do a lot of weird things like that where I get inspiration from like just random objects in The Sims. I'm really struggling sometimes to like catch my words because my thoughts are going so fast, but I have so much I want to talk through with this build. I really enjoy doing this build. This is probably one of the biggest challenges I've ever done in a Sims build, and it's just because of the shape of it. So what I ended up doing a lot was putting nooks in all of these corner spaces. And so for this one, what I ended up doing is putting like this small seance room in this little nook off the living space, because I was like, this makes it a lot easier to work with than trying to put anything that needs countertops or anything that needs to be usable up against that wall, because that really starts to limit the placement of objects in the room whenever you start working with small curved areas like this. But that's a whole other story. But overall, you can see I just put the windows. If you look at the front of the house, and I'll show you this at the end of the speed build, I tried to make it look like a jack-o'-lantern at the entrance. So using the door and those big boxy windows from Snowy Escape, it kind of looks like the eyes and a face. So that was intentional. I don't know if that's going to come across without actually explaining it, but I will say with the rounded walls, whenever you have the roof up, so you hit page up on the keyboard, you know, and have all the layers all the way to the top and you can see the whole house. For some reason, the windows don't show up, which is really annoying. It's just big holes in the wall. That's just a glitch, I think, because of the curved wall and the windows I chose to use on the curved wall. So if you're not used to using curved walls, we're very limited whenever it comes to windows and which windows work well on curved walls. And there actually are filters in the Sims by build mode where you can like filter out which windows can work on curved walls, and then like extra curved walls, I think is how it says it, or extra large curved walls. Because as you go further out, the curve gets a lot, you know, sharper or like a lot wider, so it makes a big difference on which windows you can use here. But I was literally trying to pull through everything that I could from Snowy Escape. So you can see that I used that table there, I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, and then I had that tea cabinet and putting everything with the orange tones there. And see, that's a good example. I came across that plant. I was working on the dining room, I came across the plant and I was like, oh, I want to put that in the living room. So I do a lot of weird things like that with that bonsai tree, and I actually do end up putting like an actual bonsai tree that you can use for skill building. And that was one thing that was a little bit tricky for this build, because by the time you get all of the essentials in, because of how weird and oddly shaped the house is, I had to go back through and make sure I put enough skill building objects throughout the house, because I want to make sure that it's functional for a lot of different reasons. But this house actually ended up being a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. I'm really proud of that, because yes, it is a pretty large house, but I feel like at the same time, like with the shape of it, I think it could be more challenging to have especially more bathrooms. So I was really happy that I managed to get 2 bathrooms in and then 3 bedrooms. So it's meant for like 2 kids and then a couple. So you could have 4 Sims live in this house. And so one thing that I really enjoy doing, and I do this in all my builds, is cluttering up the place. I think it makes it come alive a lot more easily. And so one thing I wanted to make sure was, you know, incorporating plants everywhere I could. And so what I actually end up doing later in the video is this open doorway from the dining space ends up being like a little bitty greenhouse area. It's like more of a plant, what I would call a plant nook kind of area, just a lot of plants, and I put those tall windows there. So it's just kind of there for the vibes a little bit more. And then what you'll see here is I'm using the red shelf mod. So if you're not familiar with that, it kind of helps you be able to place objects at varying heights, literally any height you want it to. But you can like place them on the red shelf and leave them on the red shelf and then make the shelf invisible. That way you don't have to worry about like getting a cube. Like oftentimes I'll use that cube you can put on the wall, and then I'll slot an item to the cube and then move the cube up and down to get it to the right height. But then you have to remove the item off the cube, and then like sometimes remove the item you're trying to put it on and then move the item over. It's just like a whole process. And so the red shelf makes it a lot easier to where you could literally just put the red shelf at the height you need it to and then just throw objects on it and make the shelf invisible, and there you have it. The one thing I don't like about it is that it does leave a shadow on the wall if you don't have like a dark wallpaper or dark paint color on the wall. So oftentimes I'll size it down all the way, that way you can't see that as easily. Now, I will say I accidentally uploaded this build because I was like, I didn't use any CC. And then whenever I went to upload it on the gallery, it was like, you use CC? And I was like, what? No, I didn't. And it didn't dawn on me that the red shelf is considered CC. So the first time I uploaded it, I still have it up on the gallery. You can download it if you have the red shelf mod, but I literally went back through, deleted all of my red shelves and replaced all of my clutter, which was kind of a process. I didn't have the red shelf everywhere I had clutter, but I had it in a lot of spaces. And so that was like kind of annoying to have to deal with, but now I know not to make that mistake in the future. But I do have the latest one, and it's actually featured on my profile right now on the gallery. That one doesn't use CC. It's fine. If you don't have the red shelf mod, you can download it and play with it. I will say I'm really sorry. I meant for this to be a limited pack build. It ended up not being anywhere near a limited pack build, because I was like going into this saying, oh, I can just use Snowy Escape and then maybe a few other packs like the Paranormal pack and Seasons and things like that to make it more Halloween autumnal vibes. I'm sorry. I get carried away sometimes and I can't help it. I will say though, Snowy Escape is the pack to have if you want to play in this house. Oftentimes, most of the time anyway, that whenever I have tons of packs, it's mainly for clutter items. So the way I see it is, if you like the house as a whole, you can still download it and then just kind of clutter it the way you want to, like make it more your own. So you can do that with this house if you love the pumpkin vibes. Like, it's literally like mostly Snowy Escape. I tried to use Snowy Escape for everything I could. So all of the like living room furniture except for the TV console area, that's from the like fitness pack. And I say pack generally. I know there are like stuff packs, kits, all of these other things. I just say pack as a general term. I can't remember which is which all the time, but I do know that it is a stuff pack, the fitness stuff pack. Now I'm cluttering the kitchen, which is one of my favorite things to do. So I was putting a lot of mugs. I put a little tea area. I thought tea for everything. So I normally put coffee as well, but I was like, I feel like tea is more of an Asian inspired thing. And so I know that they have a lot of great things for tea over there, and I love tea. I'm an avid tea drinker. I used to drink tea a lot more than coffee. Now it's kind of 50-50, but I will say I maybe lean more towards coffee now, which is kind of funny to think about. You can see that I'm going back and forth a lot, and so this is one thing why I get insecure about doing speed builds. So a lot of my channel is like touring builds with you after I've finished it, but I don't really show the process of it. And well, there are several reasons for that. And one is that I feel rushed whenever I'm doing these, even these speed builds like this video. And I feel like I need to hurry, and it kind of interrupts my creative process a little bit. And so it makes me really anxious to do speed builds. And that's just because I do like to make them look lived in a lot. And so I like to use a lot of clutter, and that just takes a lot more time whenever you're doing builds with a lot of little details like that. So I hope you can understand and be understanding that I don't do a lot of speed builds. I'm trying to do better. This is only my second one. I did the 100 dropship for my 100 subscriber mark, and that one was really fun to do. I ended up like going through this, and going into that hallway was a little bit annoying because whenever you have an opening archway, I don't know if you know this or not, or if you've tried it, if it's a small room, you actually can't work through the archway. You have to go above the archway to edit and move objects and add things, which is really annoying. You can change the color swatch of things through the arch, but that's about it. But back to what I was trying to say earlier, speed builds make me really anxious, and this is new for me. But also, like, even trying to do a video, I know some simmers like to do live building videos, and that like really scares me because I feel like I cannot do a build in like just an hour or two because I overthink a lot of things, and I try to be super intentional with every little thing that I do. I literally try to be intentional with every object I use and put in my builds. So you can see right here, this ends up changing completely. So I was going for like a pumpkin vibe. I was going to do like a pumpkin themed bedroom, or at least orange themed. And then I came across that ghost wallpaper, which is so cute, and I was going to use the orange one. But then I saw this swatch. I was like, oh, that is such a cool swatch. I have to use it. That wallpaper made me completely change what I was planning on doing for this bedroom. So I went with like a lot of blues, greens, and purples. So lots of cool tones in this build, in this bedroom rather. And I think it turned out really well. This is my favorite room in the whole house that I ended up doing. So by the time it's done, it has a ton of fun clutter, and it's such a vibe. But this was by far my favorite room in the house, which is saying something because I actually do like a lot of the other rooms that I did. I ended up using a lot of the new storybook nursery kit for the other room. So I made that as like a toddler's room, and I've been using that kit so much since it came out, and I'm using it. I used it in another build that I just finished, and I'm planning on using it in a build I'm currently working on right now. So I have a lot of videos to do in the next couple of weeks. So if you want to subscribe and stick around to hang out with what I did, one of them is the largest build I have ever done in The Sims. So I'll give you all a sneak peek if you made it this far in the video. It is 6 stories. It has 6 floors. It is a massive mansion. I mean, it is massive. I am pretty much done with it right now. I don't think I'm going to add anything else or too much more, but it is almost 700,000 simoleons. And it has surprisingly not taken me as long as I thought it would. I've been getting a lot quicker and better. So I've like really improved with my process. And that's why I started doing speed build videos like this, because I am feeling a little more confident with being able to at least get something out that looks nice. But I think I like to always try to stand out and do something that other simmers haven't done. And so that's why I overthink a lot of things and make it look, or try to make it seem like super cool. And so that's why I get stuck sometimes in my creative process, and I don't like feeling rushed whenever I'm doing that. But you can see it in this one. This is the toddler bedroom. So I was trying to do like black, gold, and red vibes, but I didn't want to use the black swatch from the Storybook Nursery kit. I really like this kind of like silver gray with the gold accent. So I like combined a few different swatches together from that kit with the black, that gray, and then the red and gold. So gold is kind of the accent color throughout this bedroom entirely. And then I used that new wallpaper, so that was a lot of fun. And then I used the little like turkey creative craft and put it over by the craft table because I thought that was such a cute vibe. I couldn't not do that. Like, I know it doesn't match the aesthetic of the room, but I was like, that's too cute to not put and not use. So now I'm like getting into the bathroom. So this is supposed to be the primary bathroom that everyone uses, other than, you know, the parents. This was a lot of fun. I think this is one of the like coolest bathrooms I've done in a lot of ways. And that's saying something. I always try to do something unique with my bathrooms, at least one bathroom in whatever build I'm doing, because I think that bathrooms are often overlooked in the Sims builds that I've seen. It's kind of like an afterthought and people don't care about them that much. And so I think that's one thing that differentiates me from other simmers is I pay attention to the little details in every single room. I try to make every single room super cool or have its own vibe. One thing that I was going for in this bathroom was I wanted a separate room for the toilet, because that is something that is commonly seen in Japanese culture, and I think just generally Asian culture. And so that's what I'm working on in this area. And I wanted to like use its own clutter because it was a little bit bigger than I would have liked for it to have been. This was originally going to be a laundry room, but whenever I was trying to fit the toilet with everything else in the other part of the bathroom, the main part with the shower, it just didn't fit very well because I was like determined. I really wanted to use that Love Struck shower door to have like the built-in shower. And so since I was determined to use that, I was like, I don't know how I can fill this bathroom up and make it look okay while using the toilet in this same space. So it just looked awkward to me a little bit. And I think also adding the platform was something that worked really well. Now, I will say in the bathroom especially that the cabinets stick out from the exterior wall. So I have landscaping that kind of covers that up. But I mean, when you're working with rounded houses, I guess, or rounded walls in general, like that's just something you can't really help. So I tried to use the island cabinets as much as I could to fill the gaps. So I would bring the rectangular cabinet up off the back of the wall just a little bit and then use the rounded island counter, the same swatch, and put that behind it since it would fit the contour of the wall really well. So that's like a little bit of a hack if you're trying to use cabinets or counters rather up against a rounded wall. This is the primary bedroom that I kind of skipped over to now. And I turned this like rounded section of their room into like this little nook area to read or hang out. So it's just got some seating, and I end up putting like a couple of books in that area. It's just supposed to be like a nice little relaxing vibe. And so I have the fireplace there. I end up putting a couple of windows, a hanging plant. But I just like the idea of like waking up one morning, like drinking your coffee and hanging out in your room by the fireplace or something, or even like one evening you could just do that. And so I really like the vibe of that. And I wanted to use the paranormal wallpaper because I kind of sprinkled paranormal throughout this house as well. So I would say you don't have to have that, but that would probably be the other kind of pack that I would recommend that you have if you download it other than Snowy Escape. Because without paranormal, I mean, you do kind of lose some of the character of the house as well. But that's not as important as Snowy Escape, obviously, because all the wallpapers, especially like throughout the house, use Snowy Escape. And then one thing I did put throughout the house on this too was the pipes. And so I wanted to like give it this kind of cool like industrial feel. And so I used pipes throughout the house as well in a couple of areas. I think pipes are a nice way to fill in spaces, especially when you have taller walls. So I did use a higher wall height, and one thing that annoys me with tall wall heights is how empty it can feel at the top of them. So sometimes I struggle with like thinking of something to put on the wall to fill the space, but I tried to be very intentional with that everywhere in this house. So I tried to put, especially in like the bedrooms or the bathrooms, I put art all over the high wall height areas, like above the doors, because I think in real life, whenever you have like a ceiling that's that high up, it just seems like it's really missing something and it feels really empty. So I didn't want it to feel empty, and I never liked that, obviously, as a maximalist in my Sims build. As you can see, I like to put clutter literally everywhere. I don't like open empty spaces. I have to fill everything in, and you know, in some ways I think that makes it more fun, and I think it makes it look more realistic, because I think in real life, most of us, unless you actually practice minimalism, we kind of have a lot of stuff everywhere. I have a lot of stuff everywhere, and I've even gotten rid of a lot of stuff, but I can't help it. It just happens over time. You collect things. It just happens. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that's what happens. So like in this one, you can see I put those industrial lights above the door, and that kind of goes with the piping a little bit. So I wanted it to kind of have that aesthetic and that vibe, and that light is huge. So it fills up, I even had to size it down. It fills up that space above the door very well, and it's functional because it, you know, gives more light to the area too. So now I'm working on the side tables in the primary bedroom, so I like putting clutter on those. Kind of just put like a lot of jewelry on one side that I was kind of pretending would be the wife's side, and then put like a journal and glasses on the father's side. Now, see, this is a good example. I went back to the kitchen, so I'm back in the kitchen, like cluttering things up. And one thing that I did, because with the stove, it gets a little tricky having that up against a rounded wall. So you have a gap behind it. And I took one of the floating shelves and sized it down, and thankfully it comes in a very similar black tone color swatch, and I just put it right there and made it level with the countertop, and it worked perfectly. Like, you do get a little bit of that weird clipping where they're the same level, so it kind of like blurs over and shows part of the stove and part of the shelf, but it's like I'd rather have that than the gap. If that doesn't bother you to have the gap, then it doesn't matter. You can just leave the gap. But I was just like, I kind of want something there to cover up that big spot. You could have just put pipes behind it too. That could have been an idea, I suppose, but I didn't really think about that at the time. But I think I wanted to fill it in and be flush with the wall. But stuff like that bothers me a lot, especially with fridges. So one thing I don't like about fridges is how you can have so much space between the counter that's right next to it. So I always never know if I should scoot the fridge in and then scoot everything else over. But that's one thing that I struggle with sometimes, and that's why I like putting fridges at the ends of things most of the time, or like in the penultimate spot. So I might only have like one more cabinet after it, because it's just a lot easier to move things around. But now we are finally working on the outside. So you can see right there is where I'm covering up a lot of the like cabinets that are exposed to the outside, because, you know, rounded walls. Also, I hate that I never pointed out in this whole like speed build, but what do you think about my pumpkins? I wanted this to be a vibe, so I was going to record this earlier today, but I was like, what if I just wait until nighttime? You know, spooky vibes, have like some nice lighting. So we got pumpkins floating up behind me. I think that goes with the space. What I'm working on now is one of my favorite parts of this whole build. So this was so much fun. I absolutely loved doing this, because what I was picturing was that since it was a green roof, I was like, it's still attached to the vine. So this is me like being very literal with it, with creating a pumpkin on the vine. So I wanted it to seem like, I think it helped it come alive a lot more. And so I wanted to have like this nice green flowy vine off of the pumpkin to make it feel like it's living and alive. So that was the vibe for doing that. And that took a lot of finagling, and it took a lot of time to find the right pieces that I could use and size down or size up and like put it just in the right spot. So I actually have some of these that I'm putting right now are shrubs. So I'm literally just raising shrubs and alt placing them, and to kind of make it look like it's a smoother flow of greenery, because initially with those vines I was using, it was like sharp edges going off. I mean, they were rounded, but they were steep. And so I thought raising shrubs up would kind of help make it look smoother and flowy. A lot of flowing. And then I just put like a lot more stuff around it too, because the idea is that it's fall, so things are turning. So I put some of these kind of dead plants around it because it's like getting ready to get chopped off the vine. You can see like they're just big rectangular holes right now by the front door, but then you can see like right now at nighttime, I put the walls down, the roof down, and you can see the windows there. So it just kind of goes back and forth a little bit, which is a little annoying with this build, but I hope you can see like there's a little bit of a face there at the front. I think that's really cute, and that was really important to me, so I wanted to do that. And then I put like a lot of pumpkin vibes on the outside with decor, and Patchy, I think is his name. I can't remember the scarecrow's name. I still consider myself new to this stuff, but I had a lot of fun doing this build, and I'm just doing finishing touches. So let's just go ahead and jump right in and I'll show you the build. So I built it on this lot in Mount Komorebi. It sticks out like a sore thumb in this world. You can't miss it. So when you download it, if you want to put it on the same lot, it's on this lot. So here we are on the outside of the lot. So this is what I've been, yapping about so many times throughout the video with these openings on the windows. But if you go down to the first floor, they show up. That's just a glitch with the rounded walls. So don't freak out if that happens to you. They're there. It just won't recognize it sometimes unless you're only on that floor. But luckily, this is just a one floor, home, so you don't have to worry about that so much. But I thought it was fun to put a cow plant over here, and I put the pumpkin carving station. There wasn't much room for like the outside. It kind of took up the whole lot, which was kind of the idea and intention anyways. But I did put in a little area over here off the back. You have a little bit of like a bird bath, bird feeder area, and your garbage can. So I did want to like make sure I included that. And one thing too is that I actually like it better in the fall. So we're not in the fall season right now as I'm showing you this, but normally all of this kind of looks dead and isn't as like green. So just keep that in mind if it looks a little bit different in the video than what it does now. But as you go in this cute little entrance with all of the pumpkins, you have this like nice little landing area. And I was picturing you can take your shoes off, and you kind of have to because there's a sign there for it. But a little bit of a landing for like an opening. I don't even want to call it a foyer because it's not really that so much, but you have a little bit of an entrance area, and you step down off the platform into your main living area. And so, like I said, the tall like walls make it seem so big. So you definitely have plenty of space in here. And so this ended up being the final like kind of island piece right here. So you can see I made it smaller. It's a little more open on this side, and I think it just makes it flow better and seem a little bit bigger. And I just kind of clustered some seats around that side of it. So you have a nice little dining space, a fun little kitchen. I really love how this kitchen turned out, and it's not every day you see a kitchen shaped this way. It's basically like a galleyway kitchen, but it has this like U shape instead because we do have stuff at the end of it. But I think it's a really cool vibe. I love that space so much. And then you have your little seance area over here off of the living space, which I think is a cute vibe. And then our hallway, you have your little pumpkin decor. And then my favorite bedroom in the house is this one. So lots and lots going on in here. Super cute vibes though. I really wanted to like bring a lot of those colors, all of the colors in the wallpaper into this space. And then I intentionally, this made me think of anime, so I did intentionally put this poster in the bedroom here. It matched the color scheme a lot, so if it seems a little random, I was just like, well, I think it's anime, so, with the Japanese-inspired build, I thought it made sense to put that in here. And then right beside that, down the hallway, you have our little toddler bedroom, so there's plenty to do in this little bitty room. I think for how small it is, and especially the shape, I think we ended up using this space pretty well. I love this area. I think it's big enough for a toddler and maybe eventually even a teen. It would be a little small. You could maybe make a smaller door, but it works, and I love the vibes in there. But one thing I thought was really fun was putting these spiders in the corners of the bedrooms. So, trying to put some spooky things in, some fun festive things. But then here's our bathroom. So we have a little bit of a platform going up into this area with the sink and the shower. And then above that, you can see, like I was saying, I tried to fill in a lot of this empty space with some big items that work well there. And then our little toilet room over here. I put the little toddler potty in here as well, which helped fill in the space. And then you have a little bit of an accent table with some of your essentials on the table there. And then lastly is the primary bedroom. I had a lot of fun with this bedroom too. So I love this like light colored paranormal wallpaper. And then I made an accent wall right here with the orange toned wood to bring the color with the metal over here out a little bit more. I tried to like balance the blues and oranges in this room, which are complementary colors if you didn't know that. So that's why blue and orange seems to work really well whenever you're, doing your decor and design. But I really love the vibe of this. I would love to have a little nook like this, especially a round one with a fireplace and a seating area. So I put a little mirror over here as an added touch, and then you have kind of using this as your wardrobe at the foot of the bed, which might seem a little weird, but I think with the trunks it matches the suitcase end tables. So that's the vibe that I was kind of going for a little bit. It's a little playful. And so for this build, I actually am not going to tell you what I hid. If you go into the description on the gallery, you can see that I put, "But beware, all is not what it seems. There's an eerie presence lurking within. Can you spot the hidden mystery before it spots you?" So that's kind of a hint. Something is watching you in this house. You have to find out what it is and where it is. So I thought that was kind of a fun little twist on our usual kind of hidden item scavenger hunt that I do in my builds. So I know this video is already super long, but if you made it to the end, I really appreciate you. And I'm super excited with the growth that I'm seeing on my channel. So if you want to hang out and see more kind of fun builds, I don't know what's in store. I just did a pumpkin. You never know what I'm going to build. But if you want to stay tuned for that huge mansion that I mentioned earlier in this video, then make sure to hit that subscribe button, and I'd love to have you be a part of our community that we're growing here. Until then, I will see you in the next one. Have a great rest of your day, okay? Bye. No kidding, I think I'm going to take a break from using any type of rounded walls or platforms in the next 2,500 builds that I do.